super alloy. We're gonna see what its properties are and maybe make a knife out of it, or maybe it's all just gonna catch on fire. Who really knows? It's never been done before. Let's try it. Most alloys of copper, steel, and aluminum only contain a small number of alloyed elements, and only a small percentage of those at that. So when we combine all of these, we might get something really crazy. First, let's start with the elements with a lower melting point. I think that we have to start with aluminum, right? So here we go. A little bit of aluminum. Whew. Toss it on in there. Next up is copper. 2 ounces of silver right here. Each ounce of silver is about $16. So we're gonna put both of those on in there. All right, so this right here is a piece of gold that weighs 1/10 of an ounce. 1/10 of an ounce, and it costs $150. Anyway, here we go. Ooh, man, that hurts. I'm probably never gonna see that piece of gold again. All right, now instead of listening to me ramble on about metals for 20 minutes and hearing me say bloop 20 more times, boop, 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 boop. How about I show you this cool box from KiwiCo? It's a monthly subscription service, and it comes in 7 different categories based on age and interest, and they're all tested by experts and kids, so you know that you're getting something cool. Each kit comes with all the materials and kid-friendly instructions, so you can just get right to it right out of the box. We didn't have KiwiCo crates when I was a kid growing up, but my parents would still always buy me educational and science kits like this, and I loved them. And if we had these back then, I would be super stoked to be getting these every month. And plus, you only have to bug your parents and get them to get you at once, and it comes every month instead of bugging them every time you go to the store. This is the box that they sent me. Let's take a look and check out what's inside. So here we go. We have the instructions, the magazine that comes with all sorts of more information about the experiment to like further read about it, and all the materials right here. All right, so this is what I built. Check it out. It is a glowing pendulum. Woohoo! It looks pretty cool, but we'll have to take it into a dark room to see what it really looks like. Oh, and did I mention that KiwiCo is a great gift for the holiday season? It is the gift that keeps on giving. Show your support for my channel by checking out this great offer that KiwiCo has to offer for viewers of my channel. Viewers of my channel get their first KiwiCo box free. So head on over to kiwico.com/backyard and check out those subscription boxes. Now I guess I gotta get back to the video, but this thing is just too much fun. Now where were we? Oh yeah, that's right, we're trying to melt tungsten, but it's basically impossible. Well, again, this is a very high melting point compound, and we're probably not gonna be able to melt this, so I'm hoping some of it will just dissolve. But I think that just because it's not hot enough to melt it, it can still dissolve in the metal, because sometimes if you're using a stainless steel crucible to melt aluminum or copper, eventually the metal will melt through the crucible, or it won't even melt through it, it'll just kind of like dissolve the steel. So I'm hoping that will happen with some of our elements and that they will just dissolve into the pool of molten metal. All right, so these are all the elements that we melted. We have aluminum, antimony, bismuth, boron, chromium, copper, germanium, gold, indium, iron, manganese, nickel, silicon, silver, tantalum, tin, tungsten, zinc, and zirconium. And the reason we're melting these metals is because some of the other metals would kill me, some of them are flammable, and some of them are just radioactive, they're gases, and they're too expensive. So I think this is a good group of elements to mix together. And I know it kind of seems like we're just messing around, throwing a bunch of elements together all willy-nilly, and we kind of are, but this is actually a new emerging field of research. They're making these alloys called high-entropy alloys. And it's relatively new because it's pretty difficult to mix 20 elements together. These researchers are using specialized tools and equipment and pressure chambers, so I pretty much don't have a chance to make anything super crazy with this bad boy. I think the metal is all melted, so what we're going to do is take it out and then we're going to pour it into this mold, which is just a normal sand mold, and it has a hole that goes down there that's roughly the shape of a knife. So we're going to cast it into there and then pour out the extras on the table, and hopefully we can get something that resembles a knife to see if we can sharpen it. All right, are you ready? All right, now here's our extras. Oh! And here's the stuff that wouldn't melt. You can see the cube. Well, so far everything looks pretty good. Let's pull that knife out and see what it looks like. Uh-oh. You see this? It's breaking apart. All right, so we're gonna quench it. First, let me show you this bit. I polished it up a little bit, and you can kind of tell the color of the metal. It's pretty silver. I thought it might be a little bit gold based on how much copper and gold that I put into it, but nope, it's pretty silver, maybe with a tiny, tiny, tiny hint of gold. Now back to making this into a knife. When I was pulling it out of the sand mold, you can tell that it kind of broke as I was pulling it out, like the top of it broke off. So I don't think I can hammer this into a knife. I can't forge it into a knife like a normal piece of steel. I guess we can try though. So we'll get this piece right here and hit it with the hammer and see what happens. Yeah, it's super brittle. Like if that was a piece of like steel or copper, like a bronze sword, you would be able to hammer it flat. Or not flat, but at least it wouldn't splinter like that. Something else I noticed is on one of the pieces of metal, as it cooled, it forced all these tiny little beads of metal out through the surface. Also, when I tried to reheat the knife to reshape it, I noticed that the metal started sweating, like molten metal started just coming right out of the surface like that. So anyway, the plan was to get it red hot and then squish it flat to get more of a knife edge on it, but when I did that, the whole thing fell apart. Oh geez, this isn't working at all. So this does not seem like a good metal to make a sword out of, or even a little knife. All right, so maybe we'll try making a little blade out of this piece right there. All right, so I managed to turn that little tiny piece of the metal into a little blade here. So what we're gonna do is try to cut up this piece of cheese right here.
All right, get me a little slice.
There's a little slice for you.
Yay, so it's strong enough to cut cheese.
Yay. All right, what's next? All right, now we're gonna try to cut this aluminum can here. Can I scrape the paint off of it? Yes. Can I cut? Well, there's not really a sharp end, but maybe I can just force it through and then cut. And it can do that. That was pretty good. Now let's try this. A piece of steel. Not harder than steel. I'm only scratching away the rust.
Ooh,
nope.
You're scratching away the knife.
I'm scratching away the knife. I think if I want to make a proper knife that's made with a ton of different metals, what I have to do is do it the old-fashioned way of getting one base metal and then alloying all of this metal into it in a smaller percentage. So say like 80% copper, and then the rest of it would be all this melted down into the copper. That will give us a really interesting knife, but it will still have a pretty decent mechanical properties. Because we tried this, right? It's cool, but I feel like I could just break this bit right here like that. That's not a very good knife. This is 19 elements mixed together, which is pretty cool. But maybe I'll save a piece of this just because it's neat, and the rest of it will turn it into a better knife. We're going to be using this pink foam insulation to make a mold with the knife. First, I'm just going to cut the rough shape of the knife out of the foam, then I'm going to use a sander to bring it to the final shape. Then I painted the foam with refractory cement, just a couple light layers at a time, and build it up and let each layer dry. Then once the refractory cement was dry, I dissolved out the foam with some acetone. Methylethyl ketone or ethyl acetate would work better than acetone if you have it. The mold on itself is pretty fragile by itself, so you have to support it with sand. Alright, let me get a drum roll, guys, because this is the main event, trying to pour this metal, and this is a very nerve-wracking experience. Not because I'm worried about spilling it on myself, but because I'm worried about the mold not working right. I hope everything turns out okay. There it is! Well, unfortunately, the knife didn't turn out too great. It's curved, there's a lot of holes in it, so I think we're just going to abandon the knife idea and try something else that I've been wanting to try for a while. Well, I tried my best to fix this knife, but I hit it and it just cracked in half. I spent a lot of time grinding and polishing it, and then it just broke. And you can see there's another crack. Oh well, we're gonna melt it down because I wanted to try something else for a while now. So if you remember the video where I take the molten aluminum and I pour it into the whole fish tank full of Orbeez, I think that works awesome and I love it, but those Orbeez are kind of toxic, especially when they get really hot from the molten aluminum. The fumes that come off of that water, it stings your eyes. So I wanted to go with a more natural approach, so I'm thinking grapes will work. So we're just gonna fill this bucket with grapes and water and then see if we can get a cool cast out of that instead. Well, I poured in the grapes and I melted down the old knife in the foundry, and would you just look at that metal? I mean, you can watch it oxidizing right before our very eyes. I don't know what it is, but something about this alloy creates a ton of slag. Like whatever is in here just does not like to be oxidized. Well, everything's ready to go. Let's see how this turns out. All right, here we go. This is kind of fuller than I thought. Oh, it's heavy. It's very heavy. Probably heavy because there's so many grapes trapped in there.
Ooh, you know what you should do?
What should I do?
You should give this to your mom as a gift and accidentally forget a grape. And call her in a month and see what she says.
Sorry for toilet paper in your house. I like this. This one is one of a kind. So here's the finished product, and I noticed something really cool about it. The color, it's not quite brass, aluminum, or copper. It's kind of a mixture of all three at the same time, and I think it's pretty unique. Well, I'm pretty happy with how this turned out, and I noticed it's pretty funny that the grapes smell exactly like burnt watermelon. So it's a scent that's very familiar to me, and it brings me back. Anyway, this is pretty cool. It works out a lot better. I like it like this instead of the knife because it's a super fragile material, and if it was a knife, it wouldn't work. And this is just nice to look at. So, well, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this, and see you guys next time. Bye.